Hey there, Vermont and America. You're probably wondering what this awesome little chart right here. You see butane, coal per ton, coal per pound, diesel, gasoline, fuel oil, jet fuel, kerosene, natural gas, and propane. We're required by formula in bill draft. That is the CO2 emit factor that they're going to probably add into the formula. Oh, by the way, this is H412 Dean Sullivan, H395 Pearson, carbon pollution tax rate calculations. Because I'm really sick and tired of individuals that are always, feeling I'm trying to mislead Vermonters. And let's face it, many of them support the carbon tax initiatives. They want the climate change, 12-year apocalypse, fear-mongering tactic for them to raise money. Hey there, Todd Radcliffe. How's it out there in Hawaii there, brother? Hope your retirement from the U.S. Naval Service is treating you well there, sir. So, and this is here's the rate at $10. There's that table. Here's the rate at $50. And the unit taxed. Gallon, ton, pound, gallon. And then CCF, which is for natural gas. That's probably cubic feet or cubic squared feet. I will verify that nice little acronym. But that is the natural gas, 0.054 CO2 emit factor. That's the star. You see the star? So we go right down here. We're required by formula in bill draft. So they're still kind of in the draft process. But this is the awesome lopsided Democrat/progressive socialist Vermont House, Vermont Senate that secretly creates these awesome taxpayer-funded Ponzi schemes consistently burning Vermonters that Sanders has been pushing for the last three plus decades. And he has his followers. He is the socialist rock star of America. Although he is one of the least successful U.S. senators in U.S. history, one of the least successful legislators in U.S. history, with only a 1.8% success rate. And I got a feeling he ran on the coattails of Leahy during Leahy's productive years. He hasn't done much since except for be part of the trifecta of deflecta up there between Leahy, Sanders, and Welch. They're both Ponzi schemers. They certainly know how to destroy families and especially destroy an economy. Vermont is number 50 GDP, rock bottom. We're in the top scale of the most taxed states in the country. We got some of the biggest Grand Canyon potholes that New York City would be envious of. And let's face it, Bernie Sanders went down to his hometown of Brooklyn, New York to launch his 2020 campaign. The reason why he's not launching it in Vermont is because there's too many scams and schemes and FBI investigations and too many people that are actually intelligent enough that can break down these schemes. There's several Vermonters, although there's a lot of Vermonters that tattooed his head and glasses on their skin, and there's plenty of people that are just plain followers. They can't think for themselves. They love, the $125.6 trillion plan to destroy America because the snake oil salesman was able to destroy Vermont in a rather short period of time by jumping on the President Obama bandwagon because he thinks he is the best president in U.S. history. when that is still, that legacy is still being determined, one of the worst Iran deals ever, one of the worst diplomacy scams, you could say, under Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, then backed up by Secretary of State John Kerry, who's married the Hertz billionaire queen. And John Kerry is no leader in my view. He's part of the 60s era of Vietnam that we definitely need to leave back in Vietnam and start really using your brains when it comes to setting up these deals with dictatorships, dealing with a Vladimir Putin who's trying to reinvent the Soviet Union 2.0, the Ukraine, which is a very resource wealthy region of that part of the world. We've got it's more of a 4-team axis of powers now between Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. And many of their, let's just say, their proxy wars that they like to secretly fund. And yeah, America's had their hand in that realm in the past. They've certainly learned from their mistakes. We've got plenty of kids that are completely clueless when it comes to history, because all they do is they like to follow. I wonder what that broke off of. That looks like a part of my desk. I'm going to have to try to find out what that part goes to. Anyway, apologize for the interruption. So listen, let's take a look at this little chart. Everybody was wondering where I had gotten those numbers. It's right out of the legislation. And there was a gentleman from Nebraska or something that was wondering how I figured out the $15.5 billion Green New Deal plan. Man, do the math. $500 million a year off of whatever timeline they want. It adds up pretty quickly and easily, because all it takes is, for every 2 years, that's $1 billion. It's not too hard to figure out, man. Just actually do the math. Stop being completely lazy follower like Bernie Sanders, expecting success off of nothing but a Ponzi scheme, taxpayer schemer. Listen, yeah, he looks like Papa Smurf without the blue skin. I mean, he's certainly long-winded. He's got plenty of young people drinking that socialist model that is completely failing down in Venezuela right here, right now. And Venezuela used to be one of the wealthiest countries in South America. I mean, let's face it. Pardon me. Just look. You've got Americans that they love their drug addictions, their business models, whether it's with illegal drugs or medical grade. Vermont has a long history, and we've dove right into some of these bills. Now listen, this is the John Rogers is a Democrat down in the Vermont House. I've got to give him a little bit of props because he has his own little following of Vietnam veterans that were completely wanting him to run for governor during the 2018 election cycle, rather than Christine Halquest, who's going through a transgender midlife crisis. And Christine is now the transgender champion from Vermont, from the Democrat, not so Democrat, new spread your hate and divide and cloak and dagger tactics, rather than just looking, right in the mirror and just admitting the truth that, okay, Christine, I used to be Dave Hallequest, is going through a midlife crisis of some sort. Either it's a midlife sexual identity crisis, maybe it's a midlife, he feels he's more comfortable in women's clothing crisis. I mean, between the education that I received in the military in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in some of the larger populated areas, the LGBTQ community, which that's added on a few extra, letters, because even San Francisco, LA's version was different. Boston's version, whatever major city you go to, you try to wrap your head so that you know how to address these individuals professionally without them creating some kind of diva up in your face, emergency, whatever. Some of these bills are really serious, and we do need to get right into them. There is a complete and utter far left agenda right now that is pushing or let's just say restricting any of your hunting, your fishing. I mean, some of these bills are seriously aggressive. And then we've got the suicide issue, because we've got, it was Andrew Black who just recently committed suicide with a firearm that he purchased. So his parents are feeling the post-loss of a child that decided to take his life at 23 years old. He's not really a child anymore. He's actually a man at 23, in my view anyway. He should be, he made his decisions. Now, granted, he committed suicide. There was definitely some pain that young man was going through. But it's this knee-jerk reaction to legislation that is causing some serious issues with freedoms, period. And it's okay for the Democrat/progressive socialists to project labels, project racism on you, or project homophobic, xenophobic, all the fun, creative word usage when you're really neither. I mean, listen, if you want to identify as a female later in life, if you're going through some kind of transitional phase in your life, if you're going from Bruce Jenner to Caitlyn Jenner, Dave Hallequest to Christine Hallequest, that's fine. I happen to enjoy natural women. Just natural. Don't need any of the... there's some beautiful women that don't even need makeup out there, but yet they're still buying into the whole female... let's face it, women can be just mean to other beautiful women, or they're always putting their own pressure within their own peer group, trying to alter their look or keep up on whatever fashion and shopping and that whole plan. But Vermont is number 50, worst GDP. We've got the graph right over here. And this is, let me bring this up for a minute, because this is actually, I want to make sure what this, this is off of 2017. So, and I'm going to flip this, because there's California, supposed to be the number one. And there's all these websites that you can go to verify this data, article and sources. All right. There's Vermont, number 50, worst, only 32 billion. I mean, Wyoming's kicking our butt. And I think we even have Wyoming outpopulated, if I'm not mistaken, but I might have to verify that. I mean, we're trailing Wyoming by a good solid 10 billion. Montana by 16 billion. South Dakota, yeah, that is South Dakota, right? Yep, South Dakota by a good, oh man, then of course Arkansas, I can understand that. They're definitely, a larger state, have more resources. North Dakota, can't even beat them. But of course, though, they went through that new fracking and oil boom. Now Rhode Island, we used to be, man, Rhode Island is beating us, and that's a Democrat stronghold. They've completely destroyed that state. We are losing to Rhode Island. Then you got Maine at 61 billion. Idaho, Delaware. Oh my God, Delaware's a smaller state, but then you got West Virginia. I mean, we're well behind New Hampshire. I mean, that's more than double GDP in New Hampshire. Because am I reading that right? Is that 98 billion? Hold on, wait a minute, New Hampshire. Yeah, 98 billion. No, 80 billion. Hold on, I apologize. 80 billion. Sorry. Had to look at that. But still, that's double. It's more than double. Then you got Hawaii at a whopping, what is that, 88 billion. New Mexico. All right, you get the point, right? Vermont's GDP stinks. And it stinks because we've got 3 of the oldest dudes that are still stuck fighting the wars back in the 20th century. I mean, Bernie Sanders is one of the least successful legislators. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to have to research if that is the worst success rate at 1.8%. I mean, yeah, he's seriously long-winded, and he beats up on the top 1%. But listen, he's a wealthy individual. He's just not a billionaire. He's a multimillionaire who has 3 homes, and I'm still trying to figure out how he's paying such a low tax rate at 13.5% in one of the most taxed states in the country, and that is climbing. So the reason why all these other states, like, for example, hold on, where's Arizona, $320 billion. That's where my little sister lives. No wonder she gets to have a home, living large, no kids, gets to spoil cats. They actually allow you to deduct. They have plenty of deductions for a business in Arizona. It's actually a very tax-friendly state. Then you've got what? Wisconsin next at $324 billion. Colorado, of course, Colorado designed the new, the pot scheme that hopefully Vermont wants to design. You sell enough drugs and enough pot in your economy, because we've got to, you got to listen. From the '60s, the peace, love, dove generation that generated all the drug experimentation years, now they're in power. So, of course, they're legalizing pot. They want their kids to be able to smoke pot and keep that industry going. I mean, we just verified earlier the number of statistics of the amount of deaths by suicide and the amount of, by suicide by firearm, for example, using UVM's 2016 data, that's 3 years old. But we used the latest opioid, the drug addiction, alcohol, fentanyl is your number 1 Vermont killer, heroin is number 2, and there's a nice little pie graph chart and then they're even pointing at some of the other dying diseases, long-term diseases that Vermonters are dying from, but you try to get into any kind of conversation with anybody about it, and right off the bat when you're dealing with someone that just loves their drugs, because they really don't care. They don't care about the science. They certainly do not care about people that care about them. They'd rather just deflect, do the Bernie Sanders special. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. The question, make it sound like they know what they're talking about. Now, granted, there is some medical benefits. I'm all for that, for treating certain diseases. As long as it's under medical supervision, but I'm sick and tired of the alcoholics that just push, their favorite brands. And then of course you got, I don't even know what fentanyl looks like. I've got to get up to speed on that. Heroin, no idea. So I mean, definitely know what pot looks like. I got plenty of people that are around smoking it like it's out of style. Or what else? Oh, I was going to show you something else. Another statistic. So Todd, tell me, how is the pot smoking industry out in Hawaii? Are you still online, brother? Can you make a comment? How is the pot smoking industry out in Hawaii? Are you still online? Can you make a comment? Hi there, Victor. Arvizu. I hope I enunciated that correctly. How are you, Victor? Todd, are you still on there? Maybe not. Lance Abear is watching me now. Hi there, Lance. So Lance, why don't you tell me, how's the pot smoking business in Vermont? Hi there, Lance. So Lance, why don't you tell me, how's the pot smoking business in Vermont? I mean, I do see there's certain little shops in Montpelier that are already talking about selling the CBD oil. Have you seen the flow chart for anybody that's a recreational pot user? They're not supposed to be able to purchase firearms. It's an awesome confiscation model. I mean, you don't have to answer, I guess, if you don't want to. I know you're watching, but I figured this would be some interesting... the number of individuals that, when you try to show them the legislation, where I get the numbers, it's right off of the bills. I just showed a chart. Let me see if we can go back to that chart. I'm going to show that again. So that way, where did I put the... Oh, here we go. Hold on. Here we go. All right, folks, this is how they're going to start putting together the formula. The H412 bill by Dean and Sullivan, the H395 by Pearson, the carbon pollution tax rate calculations. This is where I get many of the numbers, and you kind of piece together the formula and you calculate it out. And just like the decarbonization presentation, they're completely ignoring the small modularization nuclear power plants now that many states are utilizing in order to make their renewable energy futures successful. It's something that I would think Vermonters would ask about, but when you got a bunch of 60s individuals that are just into smoking pot and drugs and brought up, fearing nuclear energy because they just tie it in with nuclear weapons, which are two very separate technologies. Again, it's the fear-mongering tactic. So this is where I go. I actually get the formulas. I get the factors. I plug them in a formula. And this is where, we get to figure out the awesome taxpayer-funded future boondoggles that Vermont House and the Vermont Senate are setting Vermont taxpayers up. So, I don't know. Let's see. Should I show... Oh, let's flip this over. There it is. VermontFuel.com. Links. Says it right there. Carbon pollution tax. Rate calculations. PDF. Boom. So for all the naysayers, for all the individual men and women out there that are so lazy they can't get off their butts to go on the computer and actually see the tables and see how they're going to tax the living heck out of you, that's how I do it. I actually go right on to the websites. I go right on to the bill. I see what they're handing out. Matter of fact, let's go right. There's Senator Rogers' S1 introduction. A Democrat that was a write-in candidate for the last election cycle. Let's flip this over. Not too hard to check this stuff out, okay? It's really easy. You can just go S.1. Search. Bingo. Sponsor. Senator John Rogers. Location, Senate Committee on the Judiciary. Last recorded action. I mean, you can follow it step by step. Committee activity. None right here yet. Staff and other activity. Kind of sitting there. Fiscal information. So the status right now is it's been read. It's been introduced by Democrat Senator John Rogers. Okay? So that's where I go. I actually read the legislation that was read on the floor. I try to make certain individuals across the state of Vermont aware of it so they can make other individuals aware of it, because there's some serious bills getting set up to destroy your hunting rights. I mean, the new rules in the Fish and Wildlife, maybe that's I don't know, maybe it's been a never-ending topic, but I was just too busy out enjoying the little bit of hunting that we still have left in the state of Vermont. There are some serious changes in this 2019-2020 legislative cycle. Mitzi Johnson and her all-female crew, many of them men haters, do not listen to a majority. They're on a political agenda. And I'm telling you, as a Vermont taxpayer, as a Vermont native Vermonter, and anybody that wants to keep businesses alive, some traditions alive in the state of Vermont, anybody of voting age, 18 and up to 150, if you're still alive, better get plugged in. There's some seniors legislation that's coming along. That, listen, they've already passed the you could end your life thing. That is something that has to be decided by family members. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I don't want to lose my parents anytime soon. I would like to see them die a natural death, but maybe there are some lonely individuals out there that do not have family members that I don't know. I know I wouldn't, you know, there's some great people out there. I wouldn't want to see anybody dying alone. I would think there'd be some volunteer groups to donate a little bit of time. But then again, I gotta admit, I never thought I'd see Vermont completely do a lazy, unguarded layup like the H-57 S-25 bill. I mean, you want to talk about completely lazy. With what we've seen across the United States and in other countries, and they claim like they're these legislative heroes to do a lazy, unguarded layup of 46-plus-year-old legislation without adding any of the new safeties, any of the new medicines. It's just completely lazy. It's a Bernie Sanders move. He's only 1.8% successful. He's 98.2% failure. And right now, Vermont's failing fast, so keep playing the ignore game, or just put your house up for sale, because I'll tell you what, this is going to be the summer. If some of this stuff starts getting passed, there's going to be a fast major exodus. And I feel sorry for anybody that's stuck here in the state. It's not going to be pleasant. You're not going to make very much money. And just these calculations with the tax schemes that they're talking about, you better be a multimillionaire, and even then, they're going to figure a way to funnel that money out of you pretty quick. So get engaged. We've got a whole new group coming forward to discuss in depth with some solid women and men that know what they're talking about when it comes to the state of Vermont legislative agenda. Excuse me. What their motives are. I mean, I've listened to several individuals that said they were all that in a bag of chips, and yet just completely lied to people. They had no real experience. Yeah, they got to work on a campaign, but they don't really understand the impact of what this tax code, to run the state versus the ecosystem, the business systems, or the business industries, in order to get a state that is completely deep in debt and dying back in the black. But hey, listen, I'm certainly not going to stick around if it keeps going this way. And I don't know, as much as I want to see my youngest son graduate, I guess I can head over to New Hampshire or maybe even up to Maine, but Vermont is dead, dying, and decaying, and there's a lot of people that are just sitting on their lazy butts whining, saying like they're doing something or they know the end when they really don't. They're completely clueless, and they're not reading the legislation, and that's pretty sad. So get involved. I'd love to see you guys put in your 2 cents at least, and start casting votes for some common sense approaches, because this pie in the sky stuff is just not working, and Bernie Sanders is nothing but a snake oil salesman at best, and he's not a good one at that. I mean, he's good at convincing, he's long-winded, and yeah, he's built up a following, but built up a following of what? People that are completely clueless? I mean, all you got to do is try to pump in the numbers. The guy is not good. He just offers free stuff, and these kids buy it. I mean, that's completely naive, and if they're educated and they have a college or PhD and they're consistently following this guy, I feel really sorry for them. They should be asking for a refund. Have a great weekend.